Hi, I'm Chad with Move Forward Guitar. This lesson is from our course, Music Theory 2. All the lessons for this course are free on YouTube, so you can follow right along with the playlist or look in the description below for links to the rest of the lessons. To accelerate your learning though, I highly recommend you download the corresponding Music Theory 2 workbook and eGuide. To learn more about the workbook and eGuide, click the link on the screen or look in the description below. Welcome to Music Theory 2, Lesson 9. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about major scale sharps and flats. So in the last lesson, I talked more about the major scale and how it lays over the whole fretboard. I talked about how you choose between the enharmonic names to choose whether you're using the sharp or the flat when you're calling out the names of the major scale. In this lesson, I'm going to give you a chart, which is in your eGuide, that will allow you to look that up quickly without having to look at your fretboard or a diagram of the fretboard. And it'll be something that'll help you memorize all of this stuff for the future. So to start off, I just want to make sure you're 100% clear on a couple of things first. So anytime you build a major scale, you just start on the first note and it becomes your tonic, and then you just go in the order of a musical alphabet. So I was showing you on the fretboard before, but now I'm just going to show you with actual letter names written out. So on your screen are the notes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and back to A. Those are all the letter names of the A major scale. Because building any major scale, I'm going to end up with all the letter names in the musical alphabet in whatever order I'm starting on. So for example, if I start on A, I'd end up with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, which just falls right along with the musical alphabet. Or if I was to start on E, I would just do the alphabet in order starting from E. So I'd have E, F, G, A, B, C, D, back to E. I'm just taking whatever note I'm starting on and going in order of the musical alphabet until I hit that note again, which means that in every major scale, all the letter names of the musical alphabet are going to be represented in that scale. So it's really easy to know the actual letter names of any major scale. If I started on G, I would just go G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Those are the letter names that are in the G major scale. Or if I started on F, I would just go F, G, A, B, C, D, E, back to F. That's just following right along with the musical alphabet. All the letter names of the musical alphabet are represented within this scale. The part that gets tricky is knowing where the sharps and flats are. That's really the only difficult part, because if you know the musical alphabet, which falls right along with the English alphabet, it just starts over at G, after G, you can easily build a major scale as far as the letter names go. I just start on whatever note I want my tonic, say the notes in order following the musical alphabet, and I have all the letter names of the major scale starting with whatever note I started with. But finding where the sharps and flats are, like I said, is the tricky part and takes some memorization and some different tricks to get good at doing it quickly. So if I was just to go through on the fretboard and figure this out to what has sharps or flats, where the sharps and flats go, doing it with the A major scale, the E major scale, and the F major scale, we can just do what I've shown you multiple times. If I'm doing A, I would make A my tonic. Doesn't matter what string I do it on. It's all going to be the same. Use my formula whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. That gives me the notes A, B, C sharp or D flat, D, E, F sharp or G flat, G sharp or A flat back to A. Since we know it has to follow along with the musical alphabet, we know this is a C sharp, this is an F sharp, and this is a G sharp, because we're going in the musical alphabet. After B comes C, after E comes F, and after F comes G. So it has to be C sharp, F sharp, G sharp. It can't be D flat, G flat, A flat. You wouldn't call them those names. So that would be your A major scale. So if we looked at this written out like we looked at it earlier, we would know the C, the F, and the G get sharps. Or if I was to do it with the E major scale like we looked at earlier, we know these are the letter names because it just follows the musical alphabet. We can use a diagram with all the notes written out and do the same formula. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. We end up with these notes. We know that this has to be F sharp, this has to be G sharp, this has to be C sharp, this has to be D sharp, because that's following along with the musical alphabet. So you still have all the same letter names, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, back to E, but now it's E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp. So those would be sharps when you're looking at the E major scale. Or if we do the last one, the F major scale that we were looking at, we already know those are the letter names, just following right along with the musical alphabet. We would just do the same formula, make F our tonic, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. That's our major scale. There's only one place with an enharmonic equivalent notes, and we know it has to be B flat because after A comes B. So that means the B gets a flat. So it'd be F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, back to F. And that's something you get good at over time, being able to do quickly in your head or when you're looking at your fretboard. But when you're starting out, that can be extremely difficult to know where a sharp or a flat goes in the major scale. If you don't have your notes memorized on your fretboard, it's almost impossible, because unless you're looking at a diagram with all the notes written out and you just write out the formula like I showed you, there's really no good way to do it. You know the letter names, like I said a million times, it's just going through the musical alphabet, but to know if anything has a sharp or a flat or where they go takes a lot of studying to get to the point where you're good at that and doing it quickly. So in this lesson, I'm providing you with a chart that you can look it up quickly. You'll be able to use this chart as a reference anytime you want to quickly be able to know where the sharps and flats go in all the major scales, because it's really important to be able to build all of the major scales when you're learning music theory, when you're advancing in music. That's just really important to be able to do and be able to say all the letter names. So here's one of the charts that I'm providing you with that'll really help you. In the next lesson, I'm going to give you an even better one, an even more streamlined one, but we're going to start with this one. And of course, it's in your eGuide. You always have this to use as a reference. Here, I've just written out, going vertically, all of the major scales. So we have the A major scale, the A sharp major scale, the B flat major scale, the B major scale, and so on. So A major scale is right here. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, and so on. D major scale is right here. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. So this is the first chart that you can use if you have any major scale that you want. If you want E flat major scale, for example, you just go right here. Here's E flat. You know it's just E, F, G, A, B, C, D back to E for the letter names because it just follows the musical alphabet. But looking at this chart, you'll be able to see that E is a flat, A is a flat, B is a flat. You'll be able to quickly see that. In the next lesson, I'm going to give you an even, like I said, an even more streamlined version of this that'll help you out even more. But I wanted to start with this one. And a couple other things I want to point out, which I'll go over again. Anytime a major scale has a sharp in it, there's only sharps in it. You're not going to see a sharp and a flat. You can see that as you go through these scales. Right here, there's a C sharp, an F sharp, a G sharp. There's no flats. Right here is a D flat. There's an E flat, G flat, A flat, B flat. There's no sharps. You're not going to find a scale that has a sharp and a flat in it. And if you're looking through this, you might be wondering, what are double sharps? You can see there's a C double sharp, F double sharp, G double sharp. That just happens because if you're starting and building an A sharp major scale, you have to go in the musical alphabet. So you have A sharp to B sharp to C, some sort of C. It has to be a double sharp because a B sharp is really just a C note. And if you go up whole step from a C, you end up on D, but you can't use those letters because you have to go in the alphabetical order. You have to go A, B, C. So instead of calling it a D, you have to call it a C double sharp. But that's probably too confusing for you now. Just know for now that if you see double sharps, that's all it is. A C sharp is actually the exact same note as a D, but in a musical context where you're talking about an A sharp major scale, you'd have to call it a C double sharp instead of a D. Or a B sharp is actually just a C note. You'd have to call it a B sharp in the A sharp major scale because of that musical context where we have to write out the major scale in alphabetical order. But in the next lesson, I'm going to break that down even more and actually show you the most common ways to name these scales and really all you have to worry about, and it'll make it a lot more simple. And if that's really confusing, don't worry about it for now. We're going to keep going over this stuff, so I just wanted to point that out if you're looking at the chart and you're a little confused. And technically, an A sharp and a B flat are enharmonic notes. And I've written all the enharmonic notes in the gray. So A sharp and B flat are enharmonic, C sharp and D flat are enharmonic. And it would just depend what major scale you're calling it. So if you're calling it an A sharp major scale, this is how you write it. If you're calling it a B flat major scale, this is how you'd write it. But if you played it on your guitar, it would sound the exact same because these are enharmonic notes. They're the exact same note, just with different names. And depending on the musical context, that just determines what name you're going to call it. But there are definitely more common names that you would call major scales. And like I said, in the next lesson, I'm going to explain which ones those are. So that's more on figuring out sharps and flats in the major scale. In the next lesson, I'm going to talk about major scale keys. Look in your Music Theory 2 workbook for step-by-step guidance on how to retain this information and what to do next. And remember, all the charts and diagrams for this lesson are in your Music Theory 2 eGuide for you to reference at any time.